Hello and welcome. I'm Ilishe Mikos with the University of South Carolina, and under the sponsorship of Professor Deborah Tritt at the University of South Carolina Aiken campus, Graniteville Library, in partnership with the South Carolina Digital Library, I'm here today to talk to you about the digitization process of the Graniteville archives. Being involved in this project gave me a holistic understanding and hands-on experience with the archival digitization process, from selection to scanning to file conversion to historical research and metadata creation, and all the way to accessible storage on the South Carolina Digital Library site. The Graniteville Archives collection consists of documents and memorabilia from the Graniteville Company, a major southern textile manufacturing firm founded in 1845 by William Gregg. The archives represent the only collection in existence devoted to William Gregg and the Graniteville Company. It was developed over the years by the executives of the company at the main office in the village of Graniteville, South Carolina. And here is William Gregg, who lived from 1800 to 1867. He established the Graniteville Manufacturing Company in 1845. Gregg was considered a visionary who advocated for the production of textiles in southern mills, which earned him the title Father of the Southern Textile Industry. Gregg is also known for implementing one of the first compulsory education systems in the United States. Encompassing approximately 49.5 linear feet of records, the collection includes correspondence, diaries, and other papers of William Gregg. Also significant are late 19th and early 20th century hand-entered time books, company scrapbooks, historical photographs, and the Graniteville Bulletin, a publication of the Graniteville Company for its employees. In order to effectively participate in the digitization process and even in the selection, I first had to have some historical background. I had to learn about William Gregg and the Gregg family, the Graniteville area at the turn of the century, and about the Graniteville Manufacturing Company mills. There are several, in order to identify in the photographs what was what. During the selection process, there were several things to consider in deciding which items were best for digitization. This is where a knowledge of the history of the time period and the area becomes very important for effective digitization. We had to determine whether subjects were representative within each item. Things we looked at were whether the names, the dates, and the places were known or identifiable, whether through notes written on the back or from information in the other archives. Whether similar images had already been digitized, so a knowledge of what was already in the digitized collection is important in choosing the right things. Also, some of the archival files, when we opened them, had multiple copies of an image, such as of some of the mill buildings or the grounds. So choosing the one that was of the best quality. Also, of course, the condition of the item. Many of the items in the Graniteville archive collection are in good condition and digitized beautifully. However, some of them were not, for whatever reason, had been worn or just did not hold up well. Through the digitization process, are not able to be viewed. So a unique, clear, individual photo with dates and names on the back are most valuable to digitize. The Graniteville Library uses an Epson Perfection V750 Pro photo scanner. We had it set at 600 DPI, 24-bit depth. As I was scanning, I scanned in 16 photographs from the Graniteville archives. After scanning each item, I checked for quality using Infran View editing software. The images were preserved at the time I made each one. I scanned each one as a TIFF. Then we took all the TIFFs, and at the end of each scanning session, I took the group and converted them all to JPEGs. Then Professor Tritt, when the whole process was complete and the metadata was complete, saved them on the 100-year gold archival disks. I needed to be able to create the metadata for the images from home, and not at the library. So what we did was we took the JPEGs and Professor Tritt shared them with me through Dropbox. And so then when I was home, I had all the images and the Excel sheet, which I'm about to talk about, that had the metadata guidelines. As you can see, I not only scanned the images, but also anything that had something written on the back, we scanned also, although those images are not included on the accessible South Carolina Digital Library site. I scanned them to use for metadata creation. On the South Carolina Digital Library website, which is listed here, www.scmemory.org, if you click under contributors, you'll find guidelines and resources. And when you click into that, scroll down, and here they have the metadata template, the mapping guidelines, and the schema guidelines. While the archives are stored at the Gregg Graniteville Library, they are made accessible through the South Carolina Digital Library Project. Here you can see the South Carolina Digital Library site in our section for the Gregg Graniteville Digital Archives. And so here is where our stuff is accessible, as well as through research guides on the USC Aiken library site. One of the best things about partnering with the SCDL is that they give you the template for the metadata. At the top, it's just a simple Excel spreadsheet. And at the top, they have, as well as in their guidelines, they have a document that explains each element. But here in the template, it gives you the guidelines for the format of each thing, right, and the name of each element that's required. It's a rather large spreadsheet. Yeah, there we go, as you can see. And so it's important once all the metadata is created to print it out because it's very easy for one field to bleed into another and to miss some of the metadata. So Professor Tritt gave me the existing spreadsheet. So I was not only, in addition to the historical background information I did, there was a wealth of examples for how things had been labeled in the past. Of all the metadata elements, I found the descriptive element to be the most challenging. It required the most time and the most research. In addition to the names, the dates, the titles, the locations, and all those other elements, I learned a lot of things about old photographs or turn of the century in Augusta, Georgia area. One was that it was a carte de visite, which meant this particular image was a solid hard card with gold edging. That the back of it has the photographer's name, and apparently these men, when they would travel about, would leave these photographs of themselves, almost like a business card. Another name for it was cabinet card. I also learned that many of them were albumin prints, in that which is an egg yolk mixture used to finish the photographs at that time. Also got to do some research on Pello and Cole, the photographer. So it was interesting. So we took it from this to this. And this is the image on the South Carolina Digital Library site. And here below it is all the metadata. It's Mr. Scott Maxwell. See here the photographer, so the Library of Congress subject headings, and the description. Okay. also that it was the mill in Vaucluse. Also has a link to the research guide at the Gregg Graniteville Library and its resource identifier, GGA, for Gregg Graniteville Archives. As you can see, the collection is growing. So this is the process used at the Gregg Graniteville Library at the University of South Carolina Aiken campus, Gregg Graniteville Archives, in partnership with the South Carolina Digital Library. Thank you for joining us.